My name's Lisa and I'm an addict.
Oh, Lisa.
I've got my lanyard on for the occasion. It's very good to be here actually, and I was here yesterday and I was traumatised by it, and every year I think, I love the convention, can't wait to go and see all the people that I've ever met in NA, it's going to be great, and it's never like that, and I don't really like lots and lots of crowds, and yesterday was so intense. And I just spent the whole, I think I lasted 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I was with my son, who's really tall. I was just hiding behind him in corners, literally going, I can't deal with it. And, when you try and have conversations with people and someone else will walk past, you're talking about something quite intense, and then you're like, wow, hi. And it's like, anyway, my whole family died in the fire. It's like, that's amazing. Hi, how you doing? Does a bit like that. So and then I kind of absorb all the energy, and I just was in corners with other people that were going, I can't handle it. And we ended up going to, we just get further and further into more corners, and then we ended up outside on the street, and we just both started walking really fast at the same time and ended up in a museum up there looking at a beautiful collection of forceps. I think the oldest one was from 1590, and I had my head on the glass cabinet just going, breathe, just breathe. I feel different today, I think, because it's quieter here, and I didn't come in, so I came in early afternoon and everybody was already here, and it was just like, whoa. I think that's the busiest I've ever seen it when I've got here. But I do always find it a bit overwhelming. I think the sheer amount of people, I just find it difficult. I get quite anxious around it. But as I said, it's great to be here, and we're laughing a little bit. We do have a little bit of a laugh and a joke, because I'm on the committee with Mitchell with our Atheists and Agnostics meeting, which is called Without a Prayer, which we're justifiably very proud of. But I think, thinking about it, I don't know whether I identify as atheist or agnostic. I just don't believe in God. But, and I am passionate in my non-belief in God. But I'm also passionate in wanting people to know that that doesn't mean that I don't believe in something. I'm maybe a spiritual atheist, if such a thing exists. But I think I was brought up as a Catholic with an Irish mother and an English father, and my experiences of that were not very happy. And I was thinking about it this morning, actually, and when I was 9, I remember having to make my first holy confession and kneeling on the floor in a classroom with a priest standing above me and thinking, and I was 9, so I wasn't, that articulate in my thinking, but I remember thinking, this is a bit weird. There's a man in a long black frock standing above me like that, and I'm looking up at him, confessing my sins, and I just thought, something doesn't feel right about this. Plus I remember thinking at age 9, what could you possibly have done wrong at age 9? That, the whole concept of having to confess about something when you're 9, I just found it all a little bit unhealthy and a bit odd. And I just remember making stuff up. It's like I swore at my mum, and I didn't even know any swear words. And I stole from my mum, and I didn't even, I didn't do things like that at that point. But and I just remember thinking, I just did a sin, I just lied. But so from early, there you go. But we didn't even have the luxury of the confessional box, and those things used to freak the shit out of me. Go in those things, they're really dark, and they've got these like lattice bits in the woods. You kind of just see the scary priest, and it's almost like he's going, who is it? Who is it? I'm kind of moving, so he can't get a good fix on it. But they're like, that's the trademark, Catholic guilt and shame. And I was thinking we should have a trademark next to it, so you can go in there in a little dark booth and be all shamed up and confess. So it wasn't even like that. It was in a bright room on the floor confessing, and before that, my mum used to take me and I've got 2 big sisters, and she used to drag us to church, and we hated it, and I literally, and you get really impatient and just going, oh God, I hate it. And the funny thing is that you always go, oh God, I hate God. But I just remember from that time, my mum had 7 sisters and 2 brothers, and they grew up in a tiny cottage in Ireland in the most backward way that you can imagine, in a very, very unhappy life. Lots of abuse, lots of addiction, and and I had a big Irish family, and I never saw any one person in that family derive any comfort or solace or pleasure or joy or comfort from being a Catholic. So that was my experiences of growing up, and I also had a notion that religion shouldn't it offer those things. I just found it to be like really manipulative and controlling and difficult, and quite cruel. So, and plus I was quite an angry child, a teenager, and quite rebellious, and I always sort of saw God as a thing to rebel against. I went to Catholic schools, I was taught by nuns, I had lots of priests, and it just really pissed me off. And I think there's something authoritarian about the whole notion of organised religion. So for a very long time I've been very angry about it, and really quite angry, you just think, I rant about it. I do get into bits of rants about it. I'm not so bad now, as I've sort of got found an outlet for it, and I've calmed down a bit. But I think living in a secular society, I'm very, very, very glad that we do, because I think, imagine if we lived as women in somewhere like Iran that had become very progressive. Women didn't have to wear headscarves and they could go to university. To imagine having that switched, and then the religious police are in order and you've got to cover your hair and you're not allowed to learn. Imagine that being forced upon you. So we are very fortunate that we do live in a secular society, and religion plays a very small part, and it's not something that in the mainstream, it's not like in America where it has to be in politics. So when I got clean in 2008 and I started to come to NA, I had a lot of misconceptions about it, and plus I couldn't get clean, I just couldn't stop. I never tried to stop because I just couldn't. But one of the things that kept me away from it was the God stuff. I remember going to AA years ago and just seeing, like the 12 steps and all the readings they have on the wall, and just seeing the God bit just loomed out at me, and I just thought, I can't do it. I can't, it's kind of, it's not that it's, my ethos is that I'm an atheist. I just feel very uncomfortable around the God stuff. It just makes me, it's quite deep-rooted. I feel quite upset. I find it quite upsetting. But when I first came into NA, and I did all that stuff, take the cotton wood out of your ears and put it in your mouth. I think that's the right way around. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And just listen. So I thought, I'm going to just shut the fuck up and listen. And I'm swearing for the benefit of the tape, and I'm not supposed to. But we're being recorded, by the way, and I do think it's quite funny because I said, is it when they play this back, is it all going to come out? Like on the Exorcist or something, when they record it, and it's all backwards, and you've got to slow it down, and there's a message going, God is coming to get you, and I'm the devil, or something like that. It's quite interesting. It's like when it goes up on the NA website.
Or gets lost. Yeah.
So I came into NA, I did all that thing, but I found all the God stuff quite hard, and I remember doing step 3, powerless, and trying to pray and being, I was in treatment, and they would go, God can be anything, it doesn't have to be God. It's like, well, don't call it God then. It can be a tree, it can be, they always used to say it, Bart Simpson. It's like, why would you want it to be Bart Simpson? Or it can be your dog, or it can be, I could not understand it, and I think I kind of went along with it for some amount of time, and I got a lot of negative comments from people, because I've realised that a lot of my anger that I generate towards NA, because I've sort of seen it as the God thing, has been... people have said to me that, I intellectualise it, or that I'm too smart. I've had that said about our meeting, are you lot too smart for your own good? But my favourite was that you have a resentment against God, and it's like, how can I have a resentment against something I don't believe in? And it was just, that was my favourite, that I was arrogant, that I wasn't ready to surrender. I heard it all, and so I just shut up and got on with it. And it sort of festered inside of me, it was just like, there isn't anywhere I can go and say, I don't believe in God, and I don't feel comfortable with all the God stuff in the readings. But you know what? I just get on with it and listen to it. But so the thing is, when this meeting was set up, I think it was last October, was it?
October the 1st.
I kind of, all the anger diffused a bit, because I remember going in there and just ranting and going, I hate this and I hate that, and I don't like the word God and I hate the word prayer, and I just thought, I just sound like the sort of person I've got be nice tattooed on my wrist, and it's like that. Just be nice and stop being a hater. Fucking hell. Yeah. I need to have one on here that says, look at your other wrist. Because it's just, I'm ranting away about everything I hate, and then I stopped doing it in there because I'd heard other people saying, I don't believe in God either, and also talking about the difficulties they have experienced within a modern secular society. We're all kind of modern, forward-thinking people. We're quite deep thinkers, and think outside the box, because I think as addicts in recovery, we've done a lot of work for ourselves. We've become introspective and we reflect on things, kind of meditate, we think, and I think, it gets a bit confined, and I think within all of those readings. So I think since I started going to that meeting and heard other people, I've got a lot of gratitude that there are other people that think like it. The funny thing is, there's one of the people that comes to the meeting, and she's a Muslim, and she said something the other day that made me really laugh. She said, for a meeting for people that don't believe in God, all you lot talk about is God. That's all we do is like, God, fucking God. Trying to make us believe in God. God. And then we go off, and when I remember doing a share there and go, for God's sakes! It's just like, and it's so in the vernacular and the sort of lexicon of language that we use, it's just like, I kind of trip myself up in it, and it's all, it's like, it's okay to say it, because it's like, that's God with a small g, or, But I think I cycle a lot, I commute on my bike, and I do a lot of my best thinking on my bicycle. But I think what I came to realise was that I am my higher power. Okay, it's not like I'm this great omnipotent thing and it's me. But I think I am that. My higher consciousness is me, and I think, the deeper I go within myself, and when all the chit-chatter has been filtered out, and what really is there, that thing that's just the self, the true self, I think that's what it is. Because I always when I look within, that's where the good bit is, and I always remember when I was taking drugs, it was always the good bit within would be the bit that saved me over and over and over again. It would be the little voice that would say, Lisa, please don't do this. Quite often, when I still had hope, I was able to answer that voice and go, yeah, I'm not going to do that, I don't want to, but I always remember when my addiction progressed, because it went on for a very, very long time, I didn't really have that voice so much. The compulsion and the obsession took over it. And that little spirit, I always think it's like a tiny little blue light you have on a boiler. That is my little spiritual bit. That's where it all comes from. I think that's what it is. And I think I don't pray as such, but I think I give thanks a lot of the time. And I think what I do is I don't try to verbalise what it is that I'm asking for or I'm thankful for. I just have a sort of sense of something, and I think it's kind of like meditating, it's being quite intuitive and reflective and still and thinking. And I think, this is just my theory, my bike theory, that I think that sometimes when people become religious, and they pray and they get that meditative sense, I think that they think I've had a conscious contact with the deity that I believe in, and it's God doing that work. And who knows? I'm not against religion per se. It's just not for me. And and I see people that do believe, and I think, well, good for you that you get. I work with a couple of Christians, and they're quite young and they're covered in tattoos, and it's quite weird what they go out and they do a lot of really good stuff. But it's quite funny. They're really into it, but it's a bit like NA, but it's much more gaudy, and they have all these hymns, but they're all like Whitney Houston singing about God, and he's always playing them to me, and I made a decision that I wasn't going to go, I'm not listening to that and be mean about it, but because I've sort of thought, I'll be understanding and kind, and I'll be nice and tolerant, he plays it to me all the time, and I'm just like, it's really, really bad. It's like, oh dear, I don't listen to hymns, to be honest. But so I get it, that it's that for some people get a lot of the stuff I was talking about to start with, the comfort, the peace, the solace, the joy, that internal stuff that makes you feel very good and held. I get that. But as I said, it's not actually for me. But so I do. I am very spiritual. I became very spiritual. I think when I was at the end of my my using, I didn't have any spiritual practice at all, when I thought about self, it was all about how bad I am, how rotten I am, how everyone hates me, and then that directed out was I hate everyone else, I resent everyone. I hated God because I hadn't got to the point where I could actually say I don't believe in God. Or I would say I don't believe in God, but until I wouldn't believe in God, I fucking hate you, and I would literally be sticking my fingers up at the sky until I wanted something, and then I was just like, God, like wheedling voice, God, please, I really need to get a tenner together because I've got to get some gigs. I'm not well, I promise tomorrow, all that justification, manipulation, denial, all of that stuff, and then I would pray, and then I'd get some gear and I'd go, I don't really believe in you. Like it. I did it for a long time on my bike. I'd be like, I don't believe in God, I'd renounce God to everyone, and I don't care who hears it, I don't believe in God, and I'd get on my bike. I was just so pathetic. I'd be like this, God, I'm really sorry I said that. And then I'd try and remember all the other gods, and I'd be like, Buddha and Allah and David and Goliath, and I'd be like, who are the other ones? I don't know who they are. And I'd be like, really sorry, can you just make sure I don't get knocked off my bike? And then I'd get off the bike and I'd be like, yeah, I'm fine, I don't believe in God. And I'm kind of always doing this thing, and now it's okay, because I have a sort of belief in the self. But it's quite funny, isn't it? Because I think a lot of it's like stories that you grow up with, and myths and legends, thank you. And it's almost like, there's a survey, I often see it come up on the internet, and it's about, I think it's in America, which is a very Christian country. My sister lives there, and I wouldn't feel comfortable in America saying I don't believe in God. You know, obviously some of the people that I know that my sister knows, we could just say she doesn't believe in God either, but it's so Christian, and it's quite frightening, and it's like there's zealous about that stuff out there. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so I think what I learned was that, you know, things like higher power, I think within all the writings and all of the stuff is just to be kind of tolerant around it, and I think adapt it to the way that I can read it, and not, you know, not take it personally. You know, as I started off saying, it's really important to me. It's almost, as I said, I feel like I think we have discussed this, I think our lack of belief is seen sometimes as a moral failing, or sometimes that we, especially within NA, because I have had lots of discussions with people. A lot of people in NA have been quite angry about the atheist stuff. And as I said before, it's a bit like that there's some criticism towards NA. But the thing is, you know, this is 2016. A lot of what was written a very long time ago, with written from the best place. And I think, by and large, the fact that it's so old, all the readings, and none of it's been adapted, it kind of works, you know, because you just have to take it with a bit of a pinch of salt. And I don't think, when I have thought about it, if they tried to adapt it, can you imagine that? Have you ever sat on a committee or even gone to the ANC or tried to have a group conscience? Can you imagine trying to amend the readings and the book and take the word God out? What would you replace it with? I'm just thinking, just leave it, because, you know, yeah. So, you know, I think by and large it works, but I think it's all about being inclusive, this programme, isn't it? And it's the inclusivity, and it's like that there's room for all of us. And I think you know what, it's to know that, you know, I might not believe in that as a concept, but I believe in a lot of other things. And I think that's what I wanted to say. I went off then, I was like, what was I talking about? My belief, if I wanted to call it higher power, and the thing that keeps me coming back, is the power that I get from the people within the rooms. You know, I think the energy is a beautiful thing. Sitting in meetings when everybody laughs, or somebody says something really sad, or when you're all in tune with each other, I think that is the really powerful part of it. And that's what I come back for, you know. And, you know, I do quite a lot of service. I like doing that. I like to sort of be part of it, you know. I like to sort of be on the organisational side of it. You know, and I've met some truly amazing people within Narcotics Anonymous, you know, really bright, funny, clever, crazy, traumatised, fucked up people that are in touch with themselves and in touch with other people. And I think we're all quite lucky. I think the majority of us are quite open-minded, quite reflective, and I think have a lot of self-awareness. And I think, you know, there's not that many people out there that really are like that. So I feel very fortunate to be part of it. But I'm going to leave it there, and I just want to say thank you for asking. And how happy I am to be here today, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. It now gives me great pleasure to welcome Christos.
Thanks, Mitch. Yeah, I'm Christos, I'm an addict. Right. Okay, where do we start? I mean, apart from anything, I mean, Lisa mentioned that thing, you know, it's 2016. Yeah, it is 2016, but the first, I mean, in the other fellowship, I think AA was around, is it 33 or 36 or something like that. But the first Atheist Agnostic meeting was in 1975. So that was 40 years ago. which was 40 years after the fellowship started. So this is not a new thing. It's not some revolutionary, weird thing that people might not have a belief in God. It's not, atheists weren't invented yesterday in the invested yesterday. Or both, yes, both. Or all that kind of stuff, So, all these kind of belief systems, and there's thousands of them, been around for a long time. My kind of thing, it took me a long time. Look, I grew up in a family that was quite hypocritical, like a lot of people, but I wasn't anti anything. I just never believed from a very early age. It just didn't make sense to me. And it took me a very long time, and probably coming into recovery actually, a long time to find out who I was and to become certain of my beliefs, to actually be okay with not believing in a God. And my definition of God is quite narrow. It's not like I don't kind of get into all these weird metaphysical things. It's like, because sometimes I talk about what I believe in, and some people sort of say, yeah, but that is God. I think, well, it's not actually. My definition is quite narrow. I don't believe in that. So how do I work a program? How do I actually exist? Do you know what I mean? In NA and all that. So very early on, and I did all the stuff Lisa spoke about. God, please help me, and all this. And so I investigated all that kind of stuff, because what was I really asking for? Do you know what I mean? I wasn't actually asking for a big hand to come out of the sky and grab me and save me and cuddle me and stroke me and make me well. What was I looking at? I needed to really investigate what I was asking for, and when I had those kind of prayers and everything like that, what was I praying for? What did I want from that prayer? What did I want? What kind of solace? What kind of comfort? What kind of thing did I want that I wasn't getting? So, like I said, very early on, I had a counsellor when I first got into recovery. He always used to say to me, I used to go in there and I kind of knew all the words, and I did all the readings, and I sounded very good, and I sounded like I knew what I was saying. I kind of repeated what people said in meetings. And she said, look, you sound great. She said, but I don't. She said, could you put it in your own words, because it doesn't seem to mean anything to you. So she asked me to go away and develop my own kind of, not my own language, just to put stuff into my own words that meant something for me. And in the same way, I kind of applied those principles to the way I believed when I was told very early on, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be God, it can be anything, it can be whatever it was. I had a footballer, which is ridiculous, it's like Charlie George, because when I grew up, there was a block of flats, and in the sheds, there was Charlie George's King. It was written. He was a 1970s footballer, played for Arsenal, for anyone who doesn't know. And I didn't really believe that, and it was ridiculous. But I did do the tree hugging. I'd done that. I liked it. I liked all of that. Then it was like amazing. I did that. I went into the forest and I screamed out in the middle of the forest, and I still felt like someone might be listening. I still felt really self-conscious. And I kind of did all that, but it took a long time just to be able to say, oh, look, do you know what? It just doesn't make sense to me. So what do I do? What makes sense to me? So just in terms of the steps, I guess, this is my experience of it, really. When I did a proper and thorough step one, right, and really believed and felt my powerlessness, I don't know if it says it in the Green and Gold or in the readings or in any of those books, but it really left me. It reminded me of when I read The Easy Way to Stop Smoking, right, by Alan Carr, when I gave up smoking cigarettes. And it says at the end of that book, it says, if you're not straining like a dog on a leash, right, to stop smoking, start reading this again. And the way I applied that to my step one is I really was experiencing powerlessness. And he said, if you're truly experiencing powerlessness, truly, you will be desperate for something to help you. You will need something in your life that's going to help you. And what I did for me, purely because of the way I think, I'm quite scientific, and I was criticised for this when I was in treatment. It goes, oh, you're one of them people. Actually, there were papers written. Again, I was given it. You're one of those people that need a blueprint, right, for your higher power. You need a blueprint. You need proof that this works. And actually, yeah, and that's how I approach the steps. So for me, step two was my blueprint. For me, step two, my coming to believe that a power greater than myself restored me to sanity was proof. I actually was living proof. I had come in desperate, lonely, scared, addicted, powerless, acting out, doing things I didn't want to do, abusing people I didn't want to abuse, stealing things from people I didn't want to steal from, being someone I didn't want to be. Right? Come sit down. Look, chair here. No, someone's sitting there. Look, there's one here, there's an empty one. Right? I came in doing that, and now the way I came to believe that a power greater than myself was working in my life is because I wasn't those things anymore. I was getting better. There was irrefutable evidence that this was working. Right? Now, for people who believe in God and it's fine, and you go, oh, God did it, that's fine. But for me, I needed to see what was doing it for me. And what was doing it for me was coming to meetings, sharing honestly, being open-minded, being willing, working the steps, even though I'd only got to step 2. Right? But looking at that, and it took a long time, but it was proof. It was just evidence. So there was no need for me to question that. And there was no need in the same way I might question something that I can't see. Do you know what I mean? Whatever. So that was living evidence. So then step 3, which is what people call made the decision to turn their life over to the care of this higher power, again was pretty straightforward. If it's working the programme, if it's going to meetings, if it's speaking to your sponsor, if it's asking 3 people what they think and maybe seeing that they might be a higher power than you or a group of drug addicts or whatever it might be. Initially, this was in my early recovery. Then if it's working for you, which it says in step 2 it is, then just do it. Do some more of it. There's nothing more interesting or more less practical than that. Nothing. It's just pretty practical, really. So, and if I believe it's still working for me and I'm still clean and it's still there and I'm feeling better, and it's suggested to me that actually the people before me did this and they did the step 4, do that as well. And actually what I did, the first time was unburden myself of a lot of the shame and the rubbish and the this and that and all the behaviours that I felt I couldn't live with. That was the first time I did a step 4. But the idea of admitting it, I'd rather speak about my second step 4, which was about 300 pages long because my sponsor had to listen to it sitting in his room. And, if there is a God, and in that room, admit to myself to God, another human being. For me, what was powerful was admitting it to another human being and going for it. And do you know what? And seeing the generosity of that human being, to sit there over a couple of 2 or 3 weekends. Fuck knows how he did it. I don't know how he did it. But anyway, he was probably quite bored. But I was quite bored after I got to year 7. You know what I mean? That's weird. There's a lot of similarities between 7-year-old Christos and 40-year-old Christos. That's weird. Same answers, same problem. And but that did help me. It did help me put the past behind me. But again, the other God step, asking God to remove these defects of character or being entirely ready or whatever it is. Being entirely ready was quite one of those things. It's a process, but having God remove is not. But there's this thing. There's another book I read with this thing, and my sponsor talks about it a lot, which is about being able to live without them, rather than removing them, being able to without resorting to that kind of ineffective behaviour, and to work on your assets, and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I want to get to this thing around. See, I believe in prayer, but prayer for me is it's a way of focusing myself, of focusing my mind, and it's almost like having an unconscious mantra going on, if I want to relieve me of the fear or please work, there's an unconscious mantra that gives you focus, that allows good stuff to come in. I believe my higher powers a lot. As it's developed over the years, it's become very simple, but it revolves a lot around step 10, because step 10 allows me to have some kind of contact to get to step 11. What for me step 10 does is get rid of the shit. And I call it. I think I can say that. Can I say that?
You can say that.
I've said it. All right. Okay. But generally, for me, it's about processing some of the more uncomfortable feelings throughout the day, some of the more uncomfortable situations that I have, especially anger. I think anger is the greatest blockage to any kind of spiritual enlightenment. I think I found, but fear too, and anxiety, and all that kind of stuff. And if I can come to some kind of balance, then I can do some kind of meditation. And my meditation isn't in order to get in touch with. I don't get in touch with my higher power or higher self or whatever you want to call it in meditation. It's after meditation I'm able to do that, because my meditation also clears the way. It silences all that kind of stuff, all those voices. But I can't really meditate unless I've done step 10, really, because step 10 clears away the anger and overall kind of emotions and all that kind of stuff that kind of gets in the way of that. So, you know, all that stuff, all of it, is some kind of spiritual practice that you will find in all spiritual belief systems throughout the fucking universe. Do you know what I mean? Whether there's a God attached to that spiritual belief system or not. It's about practice. And for me, you know, people talk about this being an action program, and it's about doing stuff. And, you know, it's not the same as yoga, which is a physical, a way of, you know, connecting with your higher power through a physical means, or bypass, you know, that kind of thing. I'm looking at a yoga teacher. Oh, sorry if I'm broken. So there might be a yoga teacher in the room, and then I think that's what it means. But sorry. But you know that, you know, people find all kinds of ways and means in order to get in touch with that stuff. But usually, for me, from what I can see and what I've investigated, I tend to investigate the headlines of anything. I'm not a really deep researcher. I'm not an academic, but it's about clearing the path to get to that essence. Lisa mentioned it. When I was using, I had a very pertinent and clear, and I had a moment, right, of revelation or enlightenment, and I was smoking crack, and I was taking my shirt off and putting it back on, and then getting naked in the room on my own. Not quite, you know. Yeah, it sounds a lot better than it looks, I tell you. It definitely sounds better than it felt. It was awful, right? And I just really felt, and I couldn't stop. And I remember not being able to stop and being really thin. My chest was really heavy. I mean, I guess maybe I was like close to having a heart attack. I don't know, but you know that stuff when you're using, you don't really think, oh my God, there's like an elephant standing on my chest. Well, yeah, mate, you're quite close. It's not very good. I don't think that sounds health-wise not very good. Anyway, and I remember thinking, I want to die. And unconsciously, I really wanted to die. And this little voice went, no you don't. And a bit like Lisa's one. But it was, and it was like, no you don't. And it was really loud, but quite quiet, but really loud, if you see what I mean. But it was really clear. And from that moment on, I didn't get clean straight away. It took a few months. But that moment on, I became willing to sort of give it a go. But I don't see that voice as God, you see, but some people might. And that's fine. Really is fine. Really is fine. It's just not. I see it as part of me in the same way as when I was using, I had a conscience, and what brought me in here was a conscience, and I had a morality and a conscience before I learned anything about any kind of outside things. It was always in me because I grew up in a shithole, in a shit environment with violence and sexual shenanigans and fighting and hypocrisy and all that kind of stuff. And before I'd been to school and watched the telly and read a book, I knew it was wrong. How did I know it was wrong? No one told me it was wrong. No one came round and went, no one was let into our house. There was only me, my mum and my dad when my dad was there, so there was no one there to tell me, yes, Christos, this must be very terrible for you. That's wrong. I fucking knew that was wrong. Excuse my language, I've done it again. And
they've got beeps.
Yeah, beeps. Oh, they've got beeps. Good, it's post whatever. But you know, I didn't need anyone to tell me. In the same way, I don't need a book to give me a list of morals. I have my morals, and I have a belief system, and it's very open-minded, and it allows people to get on with it. But I need to find something that works for me, not you. Do you know what I mean? Me. And that's how we navigate the 12 steps. And they're bespoke. They're open to all of us. You know, we all have a different history. We have a common purpose, but we have a different history. And it's important to acknowledge that. We are special, actually, and we are actually different. Just because we've got one thing in common, which is addiction, does not mean we're all the same. We're just not. And then we should celebrate that. We don't come in here to all be the same. One of my biggest fears when I got clean was to come here and join into something. I didn't want to join in. I mean, But I've never been more happy than in my life to be a part of something like this, because it's more and more special. As time goes on, what am I now? I'm nearly 23 years clean, right? I'm coming there. But the thing is, believe me, my relationship with the fellowship hasn't been that great over the last few years. And the way it got good again was by starting a meeting over in Thingy and hanging out with people who are just getting clean. I like that. That's what I like. And I used to hear people talking about that. The Americans go, keeping it green, or whatever they say, whatever, going to meetings where there's lots of newcomers, you think, oh, fucking hell, there's a bit frontline, done it again. Anyway, the beeping machine. Anyway, but it's not about keeping it green, but it's really important for me to identify with that part of it. I am an addict. The people that know me well know me, I am. I do get anxious, I do want to act out, and I have my moments. But generally, I quite like myself. I like the way I'm going for a really big thing at the moment, right? I'm not going to share it, especially since it's on tape. But it's a really big thing because I don't know how it's going to work out. I've taken 2 weeks with another person to try and work out what's going to happen next. And I am going to swear again, and it's going to have to be bleeped, but they'll guess what I'm saying. In my old life, and actually probably in my early recovery, my idea of step 3 would be, fuck it, let's do it. Right? That's my idea of step 3, handing it over. Without due process, without investigation, without feeling, without anything. Actually, as a means of terminating my thought process. For me, the word God is another way of terminating my thought process, to be honest. That's one of my things I have with it. I think it's like a platitude. I think it's there just to comfort people and just go, look, it doesn't matter, that's what it's meant to be. What I've done over the last 2 weeks is spoken to people who agreed with one thing, another, made me question, ask myself all kinds of questions that are really difficult. Do you really want to do this? Do you want to do this? Are you old? Are you young? Do you like this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to sacrifice your life for the rest of your life? All questions I don't know. I don't know the answer to. Therefore, when I don't know the answer to, there's a lot of angst and emotionality. And I've got a choice, and do you know what? To that, I have to make a decision tonight that's 50-50. I have no idea, but I'm happy with either. That's all I can say. That's not, and that is me working step 3. Speaking to my sponsor, my friends, people who agree, disagree. That's what and coming to see what feels right. And I haven't come to a decision. But I've got to come to one by this evening. But the choices I've got, I'm happy with both, because I've been through the worst case and the best case scenarios with them. And I will fully embrace whatever I do tomorrow. And that might involve a lot of emotion and a lot of upset, or it might involve whatever, but that's what it's about. It's about trying to find what your truth is. It took me a long time to be comfortable with what I feel, what I believe in. Really long time. And keep going, and if you're not sure, just keep asking. And if you want to believe in God tomorrow, that's fine as well, really. It's a lot easier, I'll tell you. With that, I'll leave it.